in the heart of the urban jungle, a unique species of Homo sapiens thrives. Identified by their common adornments, the humble hoodie, their peculiar yet endearing rituals involving ping-pong tables, and an astonishing amount of free coffee. The startup Homo sapiens.
I'm no David Attenborough, but I know a thing or two about startups. For example, did you know they don't run on coffee alone?
I'm here to guide you on an extraordinary journey. Our new Twitch series, AWS Let's Build a Startup. Together we shall observe how an idea evolves, grows and matures into a real minimum viable product. All of this within the AWS ecosystem. Whether it's the thirst of knowledge guiding you or simply your passion for free caffeine. Join me on this fascinating journey.
Hey, hello founders, welcome back to another episode of AWS Let's Build a Startup. This is your weekly 1-hour show focusing on startups that are building with us at AWS. I'm your usual host, Giuseppe Battista. I'm a Senior Solutions Architect, and I work primarily with pre-Series A startups here in the UK. Please do let me know where you're coming from, what you're building here in all of our chat streams on LinkedIn and YouTube and Twitch, because I'm really curious to get to know all of you. And please let me hear your roar from wherever you're coming, and all of the questions that you have for our guests. They really help us in designing and building this show for you, because that's the that's really our goal, like making sure that we have a community and a place that we can gather all of the questions to for our founders. So today we have a very interesting episode coming up, especially if you're into customer support and if you're into agentic workloads. We are in this leg of the season, we are actually focusing on real life and production implementation of agentic workflows that we have seen across our customers, but especially that we have helped firsthand in actually building. And to help me out with this incredibly interesting task is Colin. Hey Colin, how's it going? Thank you so much for joining today.
Hey Giuseppe, yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here. Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting show.
Yeah, and Colin, you've been involved firsthand in the implementation of some of these use cases. Can you tell me just a bit more about your role and how you've been involved into actually helping hands-on startups from the AWS perspective?
Yeah, so recently I've been doing a bit of work with Pace, who's a prototyping team within AWS. They're kind of designed to help build up prototypes, get, like an isolated use case, like scope down to make sure you've got something that we can get working. We have vision of moving that into production. You can test it out, build up the framework, and then it hands over to the customer that can then go and actually, incorporate other parts of their vision into it. So we do boot camps. Lately, I've been part of 2 boot camps specifically focused on startups. In those boot camps, you have like a kind of training setup where we go through, some slideware, teach about agentic workloads, teach about AI in general, and then we move on to a co-build where you spend 2 weeks. You get hands-on with the customer, which is really cool. Actually getting to working kind of customer accounts with like their engineers, build up something that they can use, kind of thrash out ideas and help support them get to the point that they've got a product there that they can then take forward.
All right, and so what you're saying is that you're hands-on, deployed into one of the AWS customers, and just actually delivering code for them. How does that work?
Yeah. So we can get like a sandbox account set up, like a shared environment. We have all the cover and the access to it. We do like your kind of daily stand-ups, all the kind of typical engineering practices that you do, and basically become part of the team for that 2 weeks. And I think one of the really cool things that AWS does is like meet the customer where they are in their journey. So we've got a variety of different teams internally that can do all these different parts. So whether it's just like a POC, art of the possible at the very start, we've got teams that do that kind of build. We've got teams like Pace that do the prototype and hands-on, and then we've got the more formal engineering teams like ProServe that can come in and build up, full-scale production applications. So we've always got options there, and these are just services that I think really help accelerate customers.
Oh, right. That's great. And by the way, folks, this is an engineering effort that comes from AWS absolutely for free. So the customers, they don't need to pay a dime for it. They will basically have access to, in this case, with the prototyping bootcamp that we had back in, I think it was August now. Feels like ages ago. But fundamentally, the teams come here to the AWS office. We get them a week or so of hands-on training on the latest and greatest tech that we have released. In this case, it was Strands and Agent Core. And then off they go, the teams go and actually start building hands-on with a prototyping engineer, such as Colin, for example. And that's how what you can get out of AWS from the tailored to the startup ecosystem. But enough about us, I would say. So I really want to bring to stage our friends from Sweepr. So Sweepr is a Dublin-based startup that helps internet and telco companies transform how they help customers and deliver exceptional customer support, right? So we are thinking about like transforming the whole experience of customer support. So think about, for example, the last time that you contacted your internet provider with a problem, you probably had to repeat yourself multiple times, get passed between departments, or even receive just generic advice that didn't really solve the problem. Now, Sweepr's mission is to actually fix this once and for all, and of course, by sprinkling a little bit of AI superpower or a lot of AI superpowers that we will see today. So please, folks, help me welcome to the stage Jim and Owen from Sweepr. Hey, folks, how's it going? Thank you so much for coming to AWS Let's Build a Startup.
Hi, nice to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So Jim, you're the CTO of Sweepr, and Owen, I think you're leading the AI efforts at Sweepr. So maybe just give us a quick round of intro, maybe starting with Jim.
Yep, Jim Hannon, CTO and co-founder of Sweepr. As Giuseppe was saying, we're focused on what we would call digital care for telcos, but more than just telcos, any manufacturers of connected devices, anybody providing over-the-top services inside the home, so video streaming, gaming, any of those services. And really, we started the business to solve the problem that complex digital interactions were pretty badly served and largely still are. And previously, I was also co-founder and CTO of our previous business, which is called Brightbill, which focused on billing, solving kind of the same problem, but just for billing and billing communications. And we sold that very successfully in Europe and the US. And Owen is our AI lead. Owen?
Hi, everyone. So my background's in physics and applied math. Then I did some startups myself before finally kind of getting tucked into a lot of this new AI stuff at Sweepr, where I'm responsible for driving agentic customer experiences so that people, at the end of the day, people will have a nice agent to chat with to help them resolve their customer support problems or speak to. They can talk to it over voice as well. And I handle all that.
All right. So I think that I really strive for leading with a very strong demo. So I know that we have a couple of segments that we can bring on. Owen, which one do you want us to start with?
Start with the low skill demo. There's a video.
Okay, low skill. So, folks, what we're gonna see now is actually a recording of how the system works for Sweepr, and this is a conversation that simulates the interaction of a, let's say, low tech skill like user, I would say, of an ISP or an internet service provider experiencing some issues with their connection. So I'll just bring the video on and maybe we can comment on it. There you go.
My Netflix is buffering.
Hello, I'm here to help sort that out. First, could you tell me your technical skill level so I can explain things in a way that works best for you?
Very low technical skill level.
No problem. I'll keep it simple and walk you through everything. Let's start by checking if Netflix itself is having any issues right now. Netflix is all systems operational in your region, so the buffering isn't from their side. Let's dig a bit deeper into your home setup next. I see you have about 10 devices connected with your iPad using most of the internet. Is that where you're trying to watch Netflix?
It is, yeah.
It looks like your internet connection is having some trouble with delays and instability, which might cause the buffering. Let's fix that now by adjusting some settings on your router and making sure everything is up to date. I've updated your router's firmware and optimized your Wi-Fi settings to prioritize streaming. Try Netflix again and let me know if the buffering is gone.
Yeah, the buffering's gone. It's working now. Brilliant. Thanks.
I noticed your PlayStation 5 has been using quite a bit of data recently, 220 gigs in the last week, and overall usage is up 34% compared to the previous week.
Yeah, I think that's my son.
I also see the PlayStation 5 was added just a week ago, and your internet gets busiest in the evening from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Now I can offer you a 1 gigabits per second fiber plan at 30% off for 6 months, along with a free router upgrade and priority support.
Yeah, definitely send me that offer.
I've sent all the details about your new 1 gigabits fiber offer to your WhatsApp. Also, heads up, Season 2 of Wednesday is coming next month. Perfect for your next binge.
Perfect.
How was your experience with our support today?
Very helpful. My issue was solved. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the feedback. Is there anything else I can help you with today?
No, thank you.
You're very welcome. Have a great day and enjoy your streaming.
All right, so I think there's a lot to unpack there, and maybe folks, you want to like walk us through what happened behind the scenes before we get into like a different type of like a different profile of customer. So what I was really curious about is that it was a multi-turn conversation, and the kind of transition they just like went seamlessly. But the most important part, I guess, is that there were a few stages. So like first of all, like you solved the problem, but then you engage the customer in a very interesting way. So can you walk us through what happened there behind the scenes?
Yeah, more or less what we want to achieve is that every customer can come to a chatbot over voice or text, enter their problem. The Sweepr system will use integrations and APIs that are connected to the telecom network that the user's on to try to deduce what's happening with their network problem. And also it can help with local issues like router problems, firmware updates, et cetera. What we do is the user comes in with their intent or their problem. We use intelligent orchestration through LLMs to route the user to the correct agent. Each agent is a kind of a clarification agent, which tries to figure out exactly what's going on, or a resolution agent that tries to solve the problem directly. These agents are based on the existing Sweepr system. Sweepr has an experience builder where user support flows are made and that are delivered over UI and multi-channels. And what we do now is we take the the different steps of those authored flows that Sweepr already has, and we turn them into sub-agents. And we use intelligent routing to deliver the user to the correct path. Then when the user is actually having a chat with the agent, there's a few stages. So there's clarification, resolution, then there might be opportunities to let the user know about upcoming products or increased plan packages, for example, and finally a feedback stage where the agent asks the user for feedback on the session, which is maybe not every user fills that out, but it's extremely important to us. We parse it back and we take it into account.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of one of the ways that you have for like training your system, I guess, to say, hey, this was a satisfactory experience, this was not, and so like this is kind of you bring the say it's similarly to like what you would do in like a chatbot when they had like a thumbs up and thumbs down to just say, hey, this is okay, that's great. And I guess that well, first of all, like there's somebody from YouTube, Mira, that is actually impressed with this, so thank you, Mira, for sharing that. And yeah, but folks, if you have any questions or any comments on the experience that you just seen, please let us know in the various chat boxes. We'll have some of the comments coming up. But I guess maybe before we dive under the bonnet, I guess why I'm gonna bring up the video that we had with the highly skilled customer and see like what it kind of appreciate the difference between the two type of dialogues.
My Netflix is buffering.
Hello. Let's get to the bottom of this. First, can you tell me your level of technical skill? Would you say beginner, intermediate, or advanced?
Advanced.
Great. I'll keep things technical. Let's start by confirming Netflix service status in your region. Netflix services are fully operational in your region. No incidents in the past 9 days.
Brilliant.
You've got 10 devices connected, with your iPad pulling about 70% of the bandwidth.
Okay.
Network diagnostics show elevated latency and jitter. That's likely causing your buffering.
What should we do?
We've updated your router firmware to version 1.3.0 and optimized your Wi-Fi channel, QoS, and band steering for streaming. Please check Netflix now and let me know how it's performing.
Hey, it's working. Brilliant.
In the past week, your PlayStation 5 used around 220 GB, which is the top device, and overall usage is up 34% week over week.
Okay.
I also see your PlayStation 5 joined the network just 7 days ago, and there's a noticeable bandwidth spike during the evening from 1900 to 2200.
Okay.
I've sent you the 1 gigabits fiber offer, 30% off for 6 months, including a free router upgrade via WhatsApp. Plus a heads up, Season 2 of Wednesday is coming next month for your next binge session.
Ah, brilliant. I'll take that offer. Thank you.
How was your experience with our support today?
Really helpful. Thanks.
Thank you for the feedback. Is there anything else I can help you with today?
No, thank you.
You're very welcome. Have a great day and enjoy your streaming.
Wow, that was cool. I think like I noticed some of the changes in the way I would say the agents were actually interacting, like probably using a jargon that a highly experienced customer could actually understand, and maybe like I think that really helps in like tailoring the kind of customer experience that you're having. So like fantastic job, folks, and I'm really super curious, Owen, to understand a little bit more about like how this works behind the scene, and maybe Colin, you can also break it from the AWS side of things and understanding how the implementation works throughout the prototyping bootcamp. So that'd be super cool to have maybe a kind of conversation around that. So Owen, any like secret sauce that you can spill for us?
There's so much secret sauce. I can only give you a little bit of it.
That's okay.
So we do a few things. So our use case is slightly more complex than typical agent workflows. So Sweepr has its existing authoring system where providers author care flows and deploy them across multiple channels. We convert those to agentic experiences and then run them. One thing that so this is really useful for grounding the agent experience in the knowledge that the authors bring to the table for their support use cases. This is really, for us, is really critical to drive the full support experience to agents.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty fair to say that Owen, one of the things that we found when we came into trying to build the kind of complex care flows that we have in market today is a single kind of threaded approach on top of an LLM didn't really work. We found problems with the size of the context window. We found problems with the LLM not really being able to follow the complexity of the paths we were creating. And so we actually went back and then took the flows we'd already broken down for what we do today. We already had broken down intent flows into what we call stages, as Owen was referencing earlier. But those stages very neatly map into agents. And so we kind of broke down the processing of an intent flow into gathering of context, which is both technical context, but also historical and behavioral context. But also, and then decisioning, which is once you have context, what's the right thing for the supervisor to do to pick the right solution agent, if you like, or resolution agent, and then delivering the resolution agent, which does its thing, and then it obviously has exit goals and then getting into feedback. So breaking it down into an agentic architecture is kind of something we'd already done because we had this problem in a deterministic world. In a pre-LLM world, we had this problem. And so it kind of neatly fits in, and really that's what Owen has been doing, is lifting that architecture into an LLM world.
Yeah, and from a perspective of actually the actual implementation, right? So and maybe Colin, you can attest to that as well. So you folks were already a little bit like on the development of agent workloads. So you kind of haven't leaned on any framework at this point in time, right? So can you give us a little bit of like what the kind of technologies are? What are the kind of technologies that are driving this?
I'll take that. Yeah. So we have two halves to the agentic product. We have the agent orchestrator and we have the MCP server. So Sweepr, while a user is going through a flow, Sweepr has a huge library of functions, diagnose network, diagnose router, find out if there's outages in the area, check the service status, these kind of things. We make all of those available to the agent over MCP. And then we have an orchestrator for the agent. So the orchestrator, the existing system is already very, very good at routing agents to the correct stage of an intent flow. And we actually use that. We expose that list as an MCP tool, and then the agent can consume that. The supervisor agent consumes that and then chooses the correct sub-agent to route the user through. So there is some intelligent orchestration. We try then to offload as much of the kind of complexity as we can, detailed complexity, to the MCP server, and just have a flat list of tools then exposed to the agent, so the agent can focus on doing what it does best, delivering the experience. Then we have the agents are all written in TypeScript using different LLM providers at different times. There's a little bit of orchestration there, but we're trying to keep that side of things kind of lightweight. And then we have a comprehensive eval suite. So every time a conversation is run, it's evaluated both at the conversation level and at the individual message level. So messages is just kind of like your classic unit tests. Was the agent polite? Was the agent, did it behave well? And then we have larger evals on the entire conversation to ensure. So for example, parsing the feedback is one of those evals. It'll say that like feedback was requested and here is the feedback from the user. And there's other things like did the agent get lost? Did the agent stay on track? Did the agent continuously give to the user in the sense that it didn't leave the user hanging or leave the user confused? We've evals for all of these. So that's kind of the orchestration plus MCP plus evals is an overview of the whole system.
Yeah, the architecture seemed quite I think straightforward, right? But I guess that there are a lot of like technical challenges that have come, especially maybe throughout the prototyping engagement. So I wanted to ask you, like, what do you think has been like the most challenging task from a technical perspective in actually like converting what like Sweepr was already great at doing in actually maybe finding that atomic agent task?
Yeah, there's multiple ways. So one is that the MCP server handles some orchestration. So it will be running the tools, it will be running the functions like the service discovery we talked about. It will also be helping the agent supervisor deduce which agent to send the user to next. And then the agent system is the experience. Sorry, I've kind of lost my train of thought. Could you ask the question again, please?
And I was thinking maybe Colin, maybe from your side, what is it that would make like this task particularly challenging?
Yeah, I mean, challenges from the AWS side, from both sides really, actually. This is like cutting edge stuff. I know lots of companies think they're falling behind in terms of like agentic, but the reality is if you're even playing with it, you're at the cutting edge. We're still in that early adopter phase. So you're working with like a lack of resources, really. Like all the kind of common things that I would use to support things like, our AWS samples, publish blogs, like even your coding assistants aren't fully aware of the APIs in that are there yet. And that can cause a lot of problems. You're really having to like invent the code as you go along rather than having a lot of references there. Another thing that I found a bit of a challenge was a lot of the stuff that was open already is focused on like the usage. How do we use this? How do we get it to do X, Y, Z? They didn't think about deployment. And for these kind of prototype engagements, one of the big things is like we hand something to you that you can deploy. We don't want to do console ops. We don't want to like watch me click on lots of buttons on the console and build it up. We want the customer to be able to then take that and go and make changes and deploy it into other accounts. So for me, that was one of the really big challenges. But I think one of the things that eased that is this approach that Sweepr took to it coming in. So having already built some agentic systems at the back end, having all that experience there, and not coming in and being like, okay, we're going to scrap everything and just reinvent this from the ground up. You come in with the approach of, we're already really good at this. We want to migrate it to this new technology that's going to help. I think, Jim, you pointed out already, you had a lot of these problems before generative AI and LLMs, and yeah, they could have probably been solved with, some other technology there, but this new technology is transformative. It lets you do it in a way that's a bit more natural. Like, we obviously had like Amazon Connect, we had Lex and things like that we could do this through before, but the reality is things like Sonic, it's a much nicer user interface where you've got like a more native chat. So I think although there's challenges in working on the cutting edge, having the right approach to it can mitigate against that. 2 weeks is really short for an engagement as well, when it's just between Owen and myself to build it up. As soon as you hit a blocker, you've just got to solve that immediately. You don't have time to wait till like the next day to try solve it. So I think it really is an accelerated environment. I think you do get good outcomes out of it, but addressing those challenges, there's a lot on our side of like looking internally for help for people that are doing this as well, and a bit of community around it, which eventually builds out into the wider community.
Yeah, so all of the challenges of like being on the bleeding edge, and I resonate with you, Colin. Like whenever I see a customer actually trying to implement this agentic world codes on their side, like there is still a lot that needs to be done. Also in terms of like standardization, like we know MCP is great for that sort of like seamless integration, but still like it's a developing standard, and I guess also like agent to agent and stuff like that. So let's not forget that all of this technology is like, I mean, MCP is like spawned, I guess, in November 2024, and agent to agent also, I think, at the beginning of 2025. So these are all of the things that we are dealing and learning as we go, I guess. But there's an interesting question coming from YouTube. Actually, Bevan is asking, so is Sweepr deployed as multi-tenant? And actually, what's the customer data security practices that you have built around it? Bevan, thank you so much for your question.
Will I take that?
Yeah.
So yes, it is deployed as a multi-tenant platform. And yeah, one of the like Colin was saying, there are many challenges with this technology because it is so new, and the resources that you'd expect for something that's 5 or 10 years old just aren't out there. And MCPs are like a good standard for linking LLMs into enterprise integration patterns. But as with everything, when things are moving very fast, things like security and scalability, the kind of things that allow enterprises turn things on in production, haven't really been fleshed out fully. So one of the things we've built out is reuse of our existing single sign-on security patterns. Sweepr is built at the back end on the Spring framework, Java Spring kind of enterprise framework, and we're reusing the latest release from the amazing guys in Spring, to layer that in. So we're kind of we're sort of a nice hybrid of old school enterprise integration in telco and quite traditional worlds, and sort of bleeding edge agentic. So yeah, we're reusing a lot of our enterprise integration patterns to get there, and then we're also applying data security patterns that we had built before in Sweepr, which are around things like GDPR compliance, encryption, multiple layers of encryption, but all the other kind of data protection practices as well are really pre-existing in previous version of Sweepr, and we're just layering those into the agentic version.
All right. So fundamentally, you have extended the already strong security posture that you folks had, and all of the learnings that you had throughout the build out of Sweepr, but extended to that additional communication layer, which, by the way, still evolving. So I guess that there's a lot of work done there to actually create that integration layer and make sure that it's secure.
Sorry, just to interject,
yeah.
I have to jump off now. Thank you so much for having us. This is really fun, and thanks to everybody watching.
Absolutely, Owen. Thank you so much. Super happy to have you here, and I'll see you hopefully soon. Have a good one.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Bye. All right. Okie dokes. And again, Bhavin, thank you so much for your question. Now, I hope that that worked well. But if you have any questions, like if you bumped into any sort of challenges and you would like to pick the brains of Jim with us today, that'd be absolutely fantastic to have it. Daily push. Let me know what you think you missed, and I will try to do a small recap for you, if that makes sense. Otherwise, you can also watch these videos on demand on YouTube. If you search for "Let's Build a Startup" on YouTube, maybe you can add AWS events. That should give you enough context. But thanks for joining into the chat. I guess so now that we maybe we have explored a little bit from a technical perspective, I just wanted to zoom out a little bit and maybe ask you a little bit more about your business and actually how you came about to decide, hey, there is I think not a niche, I would say, but there is a larger need for building a company around the customer experience and customer support. So can you help me out, maybe finding like what kind of challenges would you say made you realize that customer service in telco could have been improved?
Yeah, so maybe I'll share a deck here and just talk through a couple of slides
Yeah.
around where we came from, and you know where we've come from, and like where we got to the point before we moved into kind of building an agentic version of Sweepr, which, by the way, we're calling Sweepr Fabric. So as I said before, the main founders of Sweepr actually came from a previous startup called Brightbill. Brightbill was focused on the terrible problem of bills being pretty much impossible to understand for large periods from when we started the business in 2010. So before we came into kind of the telco and the billing domain, it was extremely difficult to actually build good communications around what people were being billed for and, you know, why they've been charged for things. So when telecommunications companies did things like changing price plans, or when promotions changed, or when they signed up customers mid-month, or if any of those things happened, the customer didn't really understand what was happening. And so they actually had huge volumes of care queries coming into them, you know, about, you know, why is my bill high this month? Why is it, you know, why am I being charged this month? They didn't really understand. And the billing the billing providers, the telco billing providers, didn't really have an ability to explain that to people. So so that was a problem we solved, that was really like almost like a single sliver of a complex telco care problem, right? It was an extremely difficult kind of area. Billing providers a lot of them were very legacy or were not API based. And so we built a stack to basically grab the billing data feed and repurpose it and regenerate it with personalized messaging and explanations for the customer. And that was very successful. That's now deployed in front of hundreds of millions of homes in North America and Europe. And we exited that business in 2016. But while we were kind of in that process, we kind of thought this issue has there's a bigger problem. Like, billing is like one sliver of the problem. There's a bigger problem that people in life with enterprises and like telcos, banks, insurance companies, etc., they really don't have high quality self-care experiences available to them. That's why they end up bringing call centers all the time, because it's really simple stuff like knowledge bases and things like that. Yes, you can get a care bot or something to answer you on that. But once you go beyond the first level of complexity, typically you're into talking to somebody on the phone, which is extremely frustrating and is also very it's also very costly for the service provider. So that's really where we came from with Sweepr. Our concept was to build a single platform to provide what we call digital care and to make ourselves like the best niche kind of provider of digital care. Because we had such a background in telco was an obvious place for us to go. So communication service providers, mobile providers, etc. And really what we do today is we run on the Amazon cloud as a platform as a service. We weave in a range of personalization approaches to create highly personalized experiences. The skill level that Owen was showing you earlier in the demo is one of our behavioral attributes. So we maintain a set of behavioral data. We also have historical data. In other words, we maintain a history of what the customer has asked about and what problems they've had. so that you don't have that, somebody's never heard of you before experience that you nearly always get.
Mhm.
And then we also weave in, we hook into back-end systems like Wi-Fi diagnostic systems on customer networks, the wide area network, which is their connection to people's homes, billing, payments, etc., etc. So we hook into all of these back-end diagnostic systems. We weave in personalization approaches, and we use that low-code / no-code authoring environment to create highly kind of granular use cases that target different cohorts of users. And then finally, we're sitting behind multiple channels. So we're an omni-channel platform. So we're, again, one of the problems we hit when we came into the sector was organizations would build applications in silos. They would integrate those applications in silos. They would gather data. They would have decisioning. They would have content. All of those things were sitting in silos. And so, we thought we'd kind of we'd solve it in one place, which we do today, and then publish it out across the channels. So we can provide, customer self-care across web and mobile. We can also sit behind things like chatbots, like things like Dialogflow and Lex. We can sit behind IVR channels with the kind of, and what Owen is doing is working really on the voice channel that will sit behind IVRs. So that really high quality voice experience. And then we can also sit behind kind of things like field teams and call centers and things like that. So you can author all of the kind of content and logic for digital care in one place, and then distribute it out across channels.
Mhm.
And then the final part of that whole story is analytics. So we're running data analytics and data science on the very large scale data volumes coming through the platform. And then we're looking for how to optimize experiences, what types of users are not getting through experiences and why, who's dropping, who's successful, what's the context of those that are successful, and what can be gleaned to drive a continuous improvement cycle. Because really that's what this needs at the end of the day. It's not a project. This isn't like a 6-month project. You're going to spin up digital care and it's going to work forever. This is an ongoing capability that large enterprises, telcos, banks, etc., will need as really customers expect a digital world. They do not expect to have to call centers anymore. They would really like a digital world. And there's all sorts of surveys like that saying that 70 to 80% of people will use the digital experience if they can get it. But it's actually, there aren't many high quality digital experiences at a level of complexity that Sweepr is delivering today.
Yeah, and I think it ties really in nicely with an observation that Daily Push is making. Thank you so much for joining us in the chat. So there are a few comments that I will bring up, but I think essentially the summary there is that we kind of need to empower the bots to make this kind of changes and actually bringing forward that kind of digital world where you at the end of the day you don't necessarily need to interact with the person to actually make that kind of change. So I guess that's it's quite interesting as a customer experience in itself, and actually, I think what this is bringing up is a way for all of the agents in the call center to actually take a better care of all of the cases that actually need human attention and human intelligence, and so that basically that 80% of calls that maybe can be solved by an initial diagnostic as we saw before, and it can actually be resolved by a remote installation or reinstallation of the firmware. That is something that potentially doesn't require the human touch. But then when you actually need somebody to maybe look into, and I'm thinking of even more complex systems I don't know, dealing with mortgage or dealing with a claim with your insurance or something like that actually requires an end-to-end human-driven experience that can kind of free up a lot of the time so that you get the customer experience that you actually deserve. So I think there's Sweepr is doing a great job in that specifics. So kudos to that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we do that's kind of related to that is because we've got history and we know about skill levels and things like that. When a customer is contacting Sweepr for the 3rd time about the same issue, and maybe they're low skill level, for example, and maybe they're their segmentation indicates like they're not somebody that you want to, that the telco wants to lose. They want to hold on to them. We can actually delegate to a call center. So it doesn't have to be the case that if you come into something like Sweepr, you have to stay in a self-care world. You can come into something like Sweepr, and then Sweepr can be authored to be intelligent enough to go, this scenario for this user is not one we're going to handle with digital care. This is one where we're actually going to put them through to an agent. So, and all of that is all of that logic is built in, and in fact, it's in use today with our customers.
Yeah.
That's a really good point, isn't it? Like when you're working at the cutting edge with things like agentic AI, as a consumer, there's things I'm comfortable with a bot dealing with, and there's things I'm not comfortable with a bot dealing with. Like obviously over time, perception changes, but at the current stage, like I don't really want a bot doing my mortgage and massive financial decisions, fixing my internet. That I want that done as quickly as possible. So I think like that phased approach, having those exit routes to the call center agents as well, learning those preferences over time, like these are really important things that build that trust up, that people become more engaged with the bot and have more like belief in the fact that it's going to solve that issue.
Yeah, because I think people have been quite burnt by poor bot-based experiences. So they've come in and they've tried to get the care. A lot of organizations are hiding their call center numbers or making it extremely difficult to get the call center numbers. And so they've had some really bad, but then the organizations are not investing in producing really high quality experiences. So you kind of stop the call centers, but you're not giving them any other option, and people were quite burned by that. So I think a more holistic approach, like Colin was suggesting, is probably what needs to be done.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I guess that we will see potentially a shift in the perception as well, because at the end of the day, it's about like making a product more accessible to their own customers. I guess, and this is what Sweepr I guess is helping a lot of telco customers. I had more of a business side question, which is more like trying to get an idea what your sales cycles actually look like, because again, like some of the feedback that I got is that in general, like when you are a tech founder, you have to scale on so many different dimensions, and you have to get better at selling, better at like thinking about like the channels that you're distributing your product to, that even if the idea is great, even if you have like your MVP and it works and it works exactly for or like it works perfectly for your customers, then like the distribution channels and like the sales cycle may be something that is completely foreign. So I guess as a CTO, when you wear that hat, like you have to think really hard about like how are you selling, who your customers are, and I guess that you folks have an interesting niche of customers right now, but they traditionally, like telco companies, in my experience, they quite let's say cautious in adopting new technologies. So I wanted to learn a bit more on how like you persuade this type of customers, or like the challenges that you have in like even showcasing the amazing capabilities that Sweepr might have.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question. Telecoms and like a lot of like large enterprises, like they can be slow to move on certain in certain areas. They're not all slow to move. You do get some telcos who are very kind of advanced and will embrace change and will try things, and so you've got to understand who they are, and you've got to figure out your industry. I'm very many decades in telco, so I know that industry, and so that's probably my first thing is not spending years chasing organizations that are really never going to do anything, because you don't have that many cycles in you, and you can burn a lot of cash while you're waiting for them to do things. So finding a good organization with some champions who will back you, which fortunately we did with our first customer in TELUS, our first large production customer in TELUS in Canada, and finding a couple of those early on and recognizing them and being very nice to them and making sure that it's reciprocal. That's really important. You definitely need to ask yourself the question of why would any large enterprise select me tiny, poorly funded startup over the hyperscalers, which is now who you're competing against mostly, and hyperscalers and hyper consultancies. You have to ask that question. You know, a Me Too type technology won't get there because there's no reason to select you. So you have to be doing something that's very differentiated, that's bringing something that nobody else is really doing, that you can defend. You know, if you're selling into large enterprises, you're going to end up in front of very impressive product owners and enterprise architects and product managers. They're going to have seen, the thing you've got to realize is they're going to have seen 20 demos that week with people purporting to do the same thing as you or similar things or that month. And so you really have to be doing something quite special and so quite differentiated. Unfortunately, my last two businesses, one was Brightbill and the other Sweepers, we are doing a couple of things that are quite differentiated. We really don't hit people in the market who do what we do. You know, and I would say that, but that's definitely something that I would learn. And then of course there also has to be a very strong business case. There has to be a reason why a large enterprise will take the risk on you. It has to be, you know, the business case is like a slam dunk. It's like there's a lot of value in this, you know, either on the top side or the, you know, on the, you know, top line or bottom line, you know. So all of those things would have to be true. And then I would also say, you know, not scaling too fast without having some level of MVP or proof of concept that, you know, at least one large enterprise is willing to take on, you know. So, you know, there's been phases where it's been really easy to raise money. This isn't one of them, but there have been phases, and like 4 or 5 years ago, it was really easy to raise money because there was just so much money in the market. And really, it's up to founders to exercise some caution with, you know, how much money they raise and how many, you know, how fast they try and scale until they have the proof points. So I would definitely say wait till you start to see some proof points before you go and hire 30 people, because, you know, you really are you are kind of like flying the plane while you make it, and you're only going one way. And if you don't have those proof points, it can be extremely stressful and obviously not great for your employees or your investors either. So there's lots of kind of approaches to take, but and you know, you actually see quite a lot of you begin to see quite a lot of platform as a service and software as a service companies now being very incremental about how they build and how they scale, and I think that's a far healthier approach to innovation than previously.
Sounds great. And I'm thinking I'm thinking that there's also some value in actually like doing the things that don't scale maybe. Like I wanted to maybe ask you a question, like what is there any task at the very beginning or like the inception of your company that you had to like manually scale up or like do the things that actually don't scale with humans in the loop? Is there any process at your stage where actually there was something that could not be automated or like it wasn't really worth to be automated?
Not really. I mean, so I think we've always done is we've that's kind of in that vein is we've a very design centric approach. So we would run with concept designs that were not built, and build almost like demos of those without anything behind them to get those out in front of people. So that's kind of it in that vein of like not spending 18 months building something with 10 people when you can actually get the concept out with, you know, a good designer with using Figma or whatever it may be, you know, can run with an idea, and you can build prototypes and, you know, prototype pretty quickly and pretty early before you start to go out and like, you know, hire 3 feature teams. So that's probably one thing that we did, you know, certainly did in Sweepr. And then we've always maintained that design centricity and design team that allows us to move really quickly with ideas and prototype ideas and get them in front of people. So that's probably something I would also say helped.
All right, gotcha. All right, so we're slowly approaching actually to the towards the end of the show. There are a few very interesting questions from the audience. Let me just bring one up from Kartik. So this is a question, I guess it's about like the evaluation of the Could it be like percentage of accuracy in like solving the case? Maybe we can take it like more holistically, or maybe we can dive deeper into, let's say, like the kind of frameworks that you have put in place to measure, let's say, the correct routing, correct solving of a case, like the sort of like thumbs up, thumbs down. So any comments that you can make on that, Jim?
Yeah. So our target pre-LLM, which is really a deterministic kind of flow, our target would typically be what we'd call the metric of accuracy is like what we would call digital containment. In other words, do we solve the customer's problem? And you only really know that if the customer doesn't ring the call center again. So in other words, because customers, quite often the time you'll do something with a customer and they just drop immediately. That doesn't mean you haven't solved their problem. It just means that they don't want to continue with the thing or give you feedback. So digital containment is our biggest metric. There are others. We have another one called engagement, which is will the customer actually go through a digital interaction. And digital containment metrics we're going for are about 80%. And then moving into an agentic world, I would say we're looking at that kind of level of containment. And then we're also looking for the evaluation of the LLM experience to give us about 95% accuracy. I don't think less than 95% accuracy will allow enterprises put this into production. So, if the big issue, of course, with LLMs, traditional issue is hallucinations and inaccuracies, etc. And that's the only way to fix that is the evaluation framework and very tight grounding with care flows, dialogues, checks, and honing of that experience. And so that's something we really focused on, because we are trying to solve the problem that we're hearing all over, which is that enterprises they're all doing proof of concepts, but they're not pushing LLMs into production. And so we're bringing our subject matter expertise, we're bringing our flows, we're bringing our actual customer transcripts and our integrations, and then we're bringing accuracy. And I think that's going to be really important. It's an important prize to go after, to allow them to deploy this at scale in production.
Well, fantastic. That I think that's an invaluable nugget of wisdom there from somebody who's actually doing that in production. So yeah, folks, I couldn't be more happy with today's episode, which is slowly coming to an end. But first of all, I wanted to thank you, Jim and Colin and Owen, for spending an hour with us today, chatting about Sweepr. Folks that have just joined, Sweepr is a Dublin-based startup that is helping customer building a fantastic customer experience or customer support experience end to end, with a little bit, maybe a lot of like a sprinkling of AI superpowers. So if you missed this episode, you can always rewatch it on LinkedIn or YouTube, or even in the on-demand section of our channel on Twitch. So twitch.tv/AWS, or you can search for Let's Build a Startup on YouTube under our AWS events page, or you can join us our page on LinkedIn. If you search for AWS Startups, that's I think the topmost result that you'll get. Yeah, again, folks from Sweepr and Colin from the prototyping team here at AWS, thank you so much for your time. All you folks onto the stream. There's the stream of stream of comments. Thank you and thank you again. But again, folks, we will be live again next week, 2 p.m. GMT, I think 6 a.m. PST. Now I think we're fully aligned with time zones, and 9 a.m. Eastern time. Next week we should be on with an agentic. Well, discussing agentic, but with a different perspective. So I will be lucky enough to have some women that are actually leading the development of agentic AI in various different startups. We had this panel here at the London Gen AI Loft back like a couple of weeks ago, but now we're lucky enough to be able to replicate it on this 3 live platforms. So please book your calendars, or remember to follow us on the various platforms. Again, this has been AWS Let's Build a Startup. I'm being your host, Giuseppe Battista. I'm a Senior Solutions Architect, working with pre-Series A startups, and with us again, Sweepr, Jim, Owen, and Colin from the prototyping team. I'll close the stream right now, but I'll be hanging out on LinkedIn. If you have any further questions, please do let us know. Feel free to get in touch, and hopefully I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.